On Justice Lead, the story of an actor on a hit TV show, a member of the Church of Scientology, and 3 former church members who say he raped them. Danny Masterson, best known for his role as Stephen Hyde on That 70s Show, which aired on Fox for 8 seasons, ending in 2006. Now 47, Masterson was convicted in May of raping 2 women at his home in separate incidents between 2001 and 2003. The jury deadlocked on a rape charge involving the 3rd woman. On yesterday, Masterson, who continues to deny the allegations, was sentenced to prison, 30 years to life. Masterson's attorneys say he will appeal the convictions. But there is more to this story, questions about the role of the Church of Scientology and whether it played any role and why justice was so long in coming in this case. Scientology, a relatively new religion, is secretive and litigious and has regularly found its legitimacy challenged, including opposition from the medical community to its claims about mental health and e-meters, devices that supposedly monitor the body's electric flow, while so-called auditors ask would-be members questions to discover sources of trauma. The Scientology connection is important here because, as Rolling Stone reported, witnesses testified at the trial that Scientology has an expressly written doctrine that not only discourages but prohibits its members from reporting one another to law enforcement. Now, during their testimony and at the sentencing, as well as in separate civil lawsuits, Masterson's accusers said that church officials tried to silence them and cover up for Danny Masterson. During the trial, Variety reported that the women claimed, quote, the church dissuaded them from reporting Masterson to the police. Prosecutors argued throughout the trial that Masterson had taken advantage of his position in the church to rape women without fear of repercussion, and that the church forbid women from going to the police to report sexual assault, unquote. The Los Angeles Times says during closing arguments, prosecutor Ariel Anson told the jury, quote, the church tells his victims rape isn't rape. You caused this. And above all, you can't go to law enforcement, unquote. Hours after Masterson's sentencing, the Church of Scientology responded by re-releasing its statement from the day of his conviction in May. It says, in part, there's not a scintilla of evidence supporting the scandalous allegations that the church harassed the accusers. The church has no policy prohibiting or discouraging members from reporting criminal conduct of anyone, unquote. Among those in the courtroom yesterday to support the women, actress and advocate Leah Remini, a former member of the Church of Scientology, who's been an outspoken critic. She joins us now with Mike Rinder, a former Church of Scientology senior executive and Remini's co-host of the podcast Fair Game. Thanks to both of you for being here. Leah, let me start with you. Variety reports that one of the accusers, identified as Jane Doe number 1, testified, quote, my understanding from Scientology my entire life was that you can never be a victim. Nothing ever happens to you that you didn't cause. No matter what condition you find yourself in life, no matter how horrible, you are responsible. You created that, unquote. Do you see Scientology itself on trial here in any way?
Well, it's not. Well, it should be on trial. They should have been a co-defendant in this case. Yes, Scientology policy should be looked at. Unfortunately, they have tax exemption. But however, this is absolutely true. It's absolutely law. It's absolutely policy of Scientology. I was a Scientologist most of my life, and Mike, the former head of the Office of Special Affairs. And that is not her understanding. That is the law of Scientology. We are not allowed to report crimes to the authorities. We're not allowed to sue each other. So that's absolute law.
And when you watched the trial, Leah, what was that experience like?
It was heartbreaking. I've been involved supporting the Jane Does as well, Mike, for 7 years. I've had my own experiences with it. This is one story out of thousands, if not. I mean, I don't want anybody to think I'm being, I'm exaggerating for any reason, but to tell the truth. However, this is just one of many cases that Scientology has been involved in attempting to obstruct justice. And Mike could also speak to that, but it's the absolute policy of Scientology. And I think they should be held accountable, which is some of the basis of part of the basis of my lawsuit. so that people can come forward, victims can come forward, people are allowed to report crimes concerning Scientologists, Sea Org members, as well as civilian Scientologists. People should not be in fear of retaliation for a multi-billion-dollar organization calling itself a church, for fear of what they do to people when they do. And that very much came out in this trial. And it is not the first time. Scientology has a history of doing this as part of their policy. It's part of their practices. And I think Mike could speak more to this because he was a former senior executive of David Miscavige's organization.
And Mike, as we saw, the church issued a statement denying that it harassed the Jane Does and says it has no policy prohibiting or discouraging members from reporting criminal activity. Is that true?
Not at all. That's just a blatant lie, Jake. The policy is very clear, and I have put it on my blog. We talked about it in the aftermath. We've shown the policy. It is written by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. All Scientologists are bound to follow that policy. And in fact, it is deemed in Scientology a high crime to report to civil authorities the activities of a Scientologist. Everything is supposed to be handled internally so that there is no, quote, PR flap. And Scientologists live by these rules religiously, to use an appropriate term for a non-religious organization. But this is exactly what happens in Scientology. And the information that came out in the criminal trial is really just the tip of the iceberg as far as covering up, protecting, and keeping out of the hands of law enforcement the activities that go on internally within Scientology.
Mike, you just said it was not a religious organization. Tell us what you mean by that, because obviously they call themselves the Church of Scientology, and they went to war with the U.S. government to get tax-exempt status.
Right, and I don't believe that Scientology operates within the IRS code at this point. There was a lot of effort done back when that proceeding was going forward with the IRS to corral and control and make it appear that Scientology fulfilled the criteria of the IRS for a religious organization. It no longer has any oversight from any government agency, and they are running willy-nilly, free to do whatever they want, and they are in constant violation of the IRS code. The problem is getting the IRS to revisit that decision because they don't want to go back and make themselves look bad by changing their view. But you know, Jake, yesterday or the day before, there was a decision in the United Kingdom where Scientology has been fighting for 25 or more years to try and get tax-exempt status, and they require you prove that you are providing a public benefit, which I wish that law existed in the United States. Scientology has been unable to prove it and finally got struck down on appeal. The final time they're done, they cannot ever prove that they provide a public benefit.
Leah, last month, as you noted, you filed suit against the Church of Scientology, claiming you've suffered years of harassment, intimidation, defamation as part of an organized campaign of retaliation for your public criticism of the church since leaving it a decade ago. It sounds like you have really experienced a hellish time.
Yes, but the lawsuit is really, I have filed a lawsuit. However, what I hope to achieve is that this procedure of fair game, which is under thousands of policies, under this banner of fair game, it's not just one policy. And these are the activities that Scientologists, civilian Scientologists, as well as employees of Scientology, are to take against people who speak out against the abuse that they've received, if they've been raped, if they've been molested, if they've been beaten, if those people go and report, if journalists report on Scientology, if comics make jokes about Scientology, if journalists do their jobs, if detectives investigate Scientology, if a mother wants to file a welfare check on her daughter, this is all considered attacks on Scientology, for which you will receive a campaign, an operation that is instructing parishioners and the organization, the Church of Scientology, to destroy the person's life in any way possible. And the policy says to destroy utterly. And so it's not just about me. People have a right. We live here in America. We have rights. We should be able to report crimes. We should be able to report stories, do welfare checks without fear that a multi-billion-dollar organization is going to use all of its resources to destroy your life.
So tell us more about this Danny Masterson case. So you believe, and it seems like the court did too, that because he was a prized member of this church, he was shielded, and because his victims were members of this church, they were discouraged, not just discouraged, told if they went to the police, they would basically be excommunicated and their lives would be made a living hell if they reported his crimes. Now, the church, we should note, they deny that. You both say they're lying.
Well, we're not saying, Jake, we're not saying that they're lying. We have provided, the press is very well aware of it. We have, like Mike said, all of these policies of Scientology, the laws of Scientology, as Mike spoke about, are written.
Sure,
it's not something that we're saying, not our opinion. This is the laws of Scientology. They are considered high crimes. So it's not that they said it or they believed it. It's actual law that you are not allowed to go to law enforcement. You're not allowed to cooperate with an investigation into Scientology. Their own confessionals state it, that no Scientologist will ever bear witness against you in a court of law. They claim they're not moralists, so they don't particularly care what you're doing, just that you're willing to get it off to a Scientology auditor. But it is law. Like I said, I was a Scientologist most of my life. So was Mike. He was part of the organization that goes after people for doing these types of things, like reporting to law enforcement. And so, yes, that is the policy. It's
right.
Standard practice. It's standard operating procedure.
So my question is, do you think with this Danny Masterson verdict and these two rape survivors coming forward, that there is a crack here, that maybe more victims will be able to come forward and maybe law enforcement will be taking more of a critical look at what might be going on, that this is the beginning of justice and accountability?
Well, Jake, we sure pray that it is. And we hope that victims, not just of Scientology, but victims in general, feel that these brave, courageous women have been fighting this not only for 7 years. They reported the crimes to their church 20 years ago when it happened.
Right.
And he continued to do what he was doing, and Scientology was well aware of it. So yes, I do hope that this is the beginning. I hope that the IRS will look into their exemption. I will revoke it, open up an investigation. I hope that people will call their members of Congress and ask the same.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you think? Do you think this gives hope?
Oh, absolutely, I do, Leah. And I think that the upcoming civil case that those victims have is going to expose a lot more information to the world about what really goes on inside Scientology.
All right, Leah Remini and Mike Rinder, thanks to both of you. Really appreciate it.